Visiting Australia for the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival is the festival director and founder Teddy Grouya for the American Documentary and Animation Film Festival. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking to Teddy right now. Teddy, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Thank you, Peter. I'm honored to be with such a distinguished historian and critic as yourself, and look forward to hopefully meeting you in Melbourne, Victoria, very shortly.
Absolutely, yes, me too. Because the festival, of course, kicks off in Melbourne the on July
Mhm.
15th. So, Teddy, let's talk about the American Documentary and Animation Film Festival. It looks like you've had 14 versions so far, and the 15th is coming up in March next year.
Mhm.
Tell me about founding this festival. What was the aim of it?
Well, that's a great question. We're in Palm Springs, although with this type of name that we have, it's open. You could go to anywhere in the US, right? Most festivals tend to have a associated with a city name where they're being hosted, right? Whether it's Berlin or Melbourne. Sundance is an exception. Tribeca's New York, a neighborhood. But at any rate, there's a few that don't have that. But we happen to be in Palm Springs, which is not far from the media mecca of Hollywood. And I had as a filmmaker and also someone serving on a board for a local nonprofit cultural center, they asked me, they wanted to bring more visibility to their uh, three-screen cinema, and they said, "You've traveled around. What do you think?" And it was interesting because it wasn't necessarily related to doing a festival, because I'd helped them with special screenings and other live events in the past. But I had been to numerous documentary events, and I looked, and there was no singular mainstream documentary festival on the West Coast, which kind of blew my mind. There was in San Francisco, but as far as one near Hollywood, amazing. So I said, boom, there's a niche. We're near Hollywood, but we're also in this ideal, resort location. And I said, that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to be the biggest and the best, for whatever that means, on this part of the continent. And so that was the founding principle. Um, so and those people that I helped, they said, well, you can do a small event. I said, I'm not going to give up making a lot of, not being involved in my creative process of making films if I'm not going to be fully committed to having a great festival. So that was the motivation.
Uh-huh. And it's been going for 15 years. What sort of films do you attract? What's the process of inviting films and so on?
Okay, so probably much like what Melbourne Docs does, we of course take submissions. The first few years, we were open for submissions on a couple of different platforms. At that time, they were sending in DVDs. So, in the mailbox or underneath the office door, there would be, any given time, there would be a lot of mail shoved under there with discs. Then the streaming option came up as far as with links, and but I also traveled quite a bit. There was a commitment to trying to bring as many great international films to the event as possible. Even though our name was American, we were still an international festival. It wasn't just Yank films, right? So now I still travel, but a lot of times as a judge or panelist, and more recently now with this new film, which thankfully is going to play at a festival in Melbourne. Um, Now, because our reputation is really stellar amongst filmmakers and industry guests, we don't have to really search for. We might have special invitations, like for opening night, a celebrity or a cause that may be relevant today or historically. But 95% of our films, I'm proud to say, come through submissions. So that's sort of where we're at today in those 14, 15 years. And we're also Oscar qualifying in both the documentary short and animated short categories.
Oh, that's excellent. So, and
Yes.
I gather you screen hundreds of films in the festival each year.
Yeah, and it looks like Melbourne's doing something similar. But yeah, this past year, Peter, we had, including some local student films, because we're trying to help nurture this sort of through education outreach. We wouldn't be the first to do that, but I really believe in in supporting these students, whether they want to go into the industry or they just want to learn skill sets and working with, team people in a filmmaking setting. But we had about 230 to 240 films, both animation and documentary. So that's quite a bit. And along with that, of course, it's an audience and industry event. A lot of festivals, as you know, because you've been to Berlin, for example. I know you've been, I'm sure you've done your Percepti voting at many different festivals. So some of them are industry based and others are audience, and then some are both, right? As far
Yep.
as the popularity. We're trying to do both. We will invite our filmmakers and try to put them up at local homestay, sort of like an international cultural exchange opportunity for both the filmmakers and our local community. And our industry guests will put up at hotels, the judges and special guests that might be doing workshops and the like. So that brings us to this last year, we had probably 300 odd registrations from the filmmakers and industry. So we're pretty popular in that regard. And we're always working on audience numbers. Some festivals are blessed, but it's still a challenge here in the desert because there are over 1,000 events um, over the course of the year, and they're all competing for eyes and dollars and all of this. So if we were in a smaller town that maybe only had the cherry pie festival, it might be a little easier trudge. But yeah, I'm sure that Lyndon and Susanna and the team in Melbourne probably have some horror stories for me because Melbourne's a super important cultural capital in the world. So getting eyes and ears into that theater might be a challenge too. I don't know. This will be my first experience there.
Oh, it works very well in Melbourne, actually. It's at
Great,
a cinema complex close to the city. So yeah, excellent.
great,
Um,
great.
in fact, when I talked to you about all this, I noticed you studied in Australia at ANU.
Yeah, I didn't want to overhype that because some Aussies are interested and others probably could care less. But yeah, I love, in many ways, I adopted Oz, and a lot of my friends there would have liked me to have stayed, which was an honor. I got my master's at the ANU. I
Ah,
wasn't just an exchange student for a semester. I actually finished my degree there. I was blessed to even get invited to that unique program.
hmm.
And then from there, I worked at the US Embassy, and then went back to Washington, D.C., where I was recruited to come back to Oz and work in Brizzy at the Expo,
Ah,
because of my experience, in diplomatic relations. So I had about 3 odd years in Australia, and I very much considered it at home. And I love Canberra. A lot of Australians, as you know better than me, they stir you about Canberra, but I'm sure, like a lot of capitals or big cities, it's not a big city, but if you're away from home, those types of places can be very lonely
yep.
unless you join clubs or whatnot. I was blessed because I lived on campus at the ANU at a place called Bruce Hall, which is one of the colleges there.
Ah,
And so, other than my coursework, I had this sort of Oxford, Cambridge experience at one of these colleges that was really great. So I got very much enculturated into Australian, the Australian world, which included Midnight Oil and screenings at a theater called the Blue Red or Red Blue, that would do sort of classic cinema
Uh,
in the CBD there.
oh, that could have been
So
Electric
camp,
Shadows.
yeah, oh yeah, right. I don't know if it exists today in the
No.
name that yeah, but maybe it's still there in a different name, or that's gone to all the commercial cinemas,
Yeah.
at the different malls.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed Canberra. I even played basketball for our uni, and I even coached the women's team. And I came to Melbourne a few times, but twice playing for the university. They have a thing called IV InterVarsity, where all
Ah.
the different unis around the country would come and play in a big annual tournament. And the 2 years I played, they were in Melbourne. La Trobe was hosting as well as Monash.
Yep. Oh, what excellent
So
experience you've had. And I must ask
yeah,
you about you've worked on Hollywood films and in
yes.
film production and so on. Can you talk a bit about that?
So while I mean, I did my own thing at a very young age with Super 8. Not to bore you and your audience with that story, but um, in my while I was at UCLA, my father was a composer who had background in Hollywood and entertainment industry. And one of his friends, he was much more aggressive than I was. So while I was studying film at UCLA, he rang one of his friends, was a fellow named Lou Garfinkel, who was the original writer. He wrote The Deer Hunter,
Ah,
and he was a super nice man. And like you, he looked at my background. At that time I was 21 years old, and he said, oh, I see that you lived in Denmark, so maybe you speak Danish. And he said, I know of a production that's happening here in Hollywood, and the producer of this particular project that they bought is originally from Denmark. So he made an introduction. I took her to lunch, and the speaking Danish was really only an entry, because it doesn't matter who your parents are, you still have to be the one that busts your butt in that business. So I worked very, very hard. I netted $164 a week using my own car as a gopher, and but I was always the first on the set and the last to leave. So that was how I got, my first experience working on a few films in Hollywood, and it's overwhelming, but it's an incredible thing. I tell people that can also be a very sadomasochistic thing, meaning like if you're editing, it can be very lonely, almost like a writer that you know gets into their own thoughts and they drink or whatever. We know those histories. Um, but once you're done with the film, there's nothing more satisfying as well. So I was very honored to work with some real top crack professionals, to learn as much as I did at that age. And in fact, it reminds me, not to bore you, but one of my friends is a great DP, a great cinematographer from Australia, Mandy Walker. And I asked her, she's in LA now, but she was just voted to be the president of the Cinematographers Guild. And I asked her, well, what was your background in Oz? And she says, I didn't go to film school.
mm,
I just hustled. I worked on, the sets. I got on my first one, and you go from there. But you have to earn it every day. You got to earn it, right?
yeah.
So some people get lucky, but most of us, you have to work hard. So I don't know if that answered at least part of your question, but
Y-
yeah, that was how I got started, was really because
Yeah.
thankfully my dad, and then I earned it thereafter.
Okay, well done on that. But what a fascinating history, and here you are now running the American Documentary and
Sandbox.
Animation Festival, yeah, film festival, which is fantastic.
Mhm.
Now you said obviously you're coming to Australia on July 15th for the opening night of the Melbourne Documentary Film Festival. Did you say you're bringing a film with you?
Yes, sir. So that was, yes. So it may be that we were referred to speak with each other because of, we're a colleague festival, if you will, in the States, doing some similar things to Melbourne Docs.
Yeah.
And I'm a judge also at the event. But I originally, without hyping up my background, because I was hoping the work would stand on its own, so I submitted a film, uh, just a nice short film, a 21-minute film that's going to screen on July 19th at the festival.
Ah,
So that's really the big motivation, to be honest with you, in coming.
okay.
And so I'm hoping, because I'm still a film lover, I'll also be looking at films. I want to try to support, because of this history of my living in Australia, but also in film school. There were certain directors. Of course, Peter Weir was really big and became internationally famous, but there were others like Paul Cox, who I think was from Melbourne,
Yeah.
who had a great influence on me.
Mm,
And I don't really know if we have these types of directors in Australia today. I think that the industry is getting better. There's certainly a lot of superstars in a variety of areas, from costume design to directing to acting and more, that are in the mainstream industry, that are from Australia. But as far as what's being done in Australia, that are really superlative works that are making it internationally right now, I'm not sure what's out there, but I have a sense, because I look at over 2,000 film submissions, right, each year. And I think things are getting better qualitatively. Um, and so I'm anxious also to see at the festival if there's films, a program perhaps that we can curate. Maybe you can even help me, but that can be curated, and I'm happy to play it at AmDocs to help the Australian doc and animated film fest filmmakers have a little bit of this unique exposure that we have here in California. So I'm looking forward to going to as many films as possible. It's not just about me screening my 20-minute work.
okay. Are you staying for the whole Melbourne Documentary Film
I'm
Festival?
there. I'm there till I'm there for a week,
Ah,
and then I'll fly back here. But I have friends. Actually, they were both, Olympic swimmers. They're in Brisbane, that were friends of mine that I worked with at Expo. So I'll fly up there and then fly from Brisbane back to California, but that's just a few days. So the majority will be in Melbourne.
uh-huh. Oh, look, excellent. I love this interrelationship between film festivals. I think that's so important, and it's great that you're going to check out Australian documentaries and animations that would be worth screening back in
Yeah,
the
we'll see.
US.
I don't know if they have, Peter, you'd know better, if they have any animated works. What's interesting is there's this coalescence, if you will, like like Searching for Sugarman, for example. He didn't have archival footage, but the filmmaker, because he was an animator, he very creatively added, instead of just having someone talk, he added animation within the film that helped tell the story. And now you see it much, much more often. And animation, we added it to our event after the second year, because I saw something that was really important. And the interesting thing is, people that are animators, of course, they say, oh, we're all starving artists, right?
Hmm.
All of us in this business. But those people with their skill sets can go on to do graphic design. They can do gaming. So they actually have, and the gaming industry is the equal to music and film industries combined.
Yep.
So as far as revenues, so so I thought it'd be important to add animation because of this sort of marriage with documentary, and it kind of works. But I'm not sure if they'll have any of that at Melbourne Docs. But I definitely would like to discuss with the colleagues there if they want to have a little bit of an alliance with us. We do have this with other festivals around the world. And it's a great it really helps the filmmakers. It's a unique way to
Yeah.
help get them exposure to markets that perhaps they wouldn't otherwise have.
Yep.
It's certainly a problem for Americans outside of the U.S., and that's something we can discuss over a beer. But definitely, I want to do what I can for Australian filmmakers here.
Oh, excellent stuff. One filmmaker I'll recommend is Adam Elliott. I don't know if you have
Okay.
heard of him. He does stop motion animations and he's just had a lot of success with Memoir of a Snail, which is
Oh, right.
a terrific film. So, anyway,
Oh,
he's a good
great,
example. Yeah.
great, great,
Yeah.
terrific. Yeah, we'll do what we can for him as well.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, look, Teddy, excellent to talk to you, and I'm looking forward to meeting you. And it's great, as I said, this interrelationship between film festivals. So I hope everything goes well. And as I said, I look forward to meeting you. And we've been speaking to Teddy Grouya, who is the festival director and founder of the American Documentary and Animation Film Festival. Teddy, great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Peter, it was an honor. I hope you and all of your audience have a bonza wonderful day.
All the best to you as well.
See you soon.
Bye bye.